The invitation arrived like a slap wrapped in expensive cream cardstock. David wanted his ex-wife at his wedding, not as a guest, but as a reminder of everything she'd lost. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the gold-embossed words. 5 years had passed since their bitter divorce. 5 years since he'd walked away from their struggling marriage and their 3 beautiful children. The invitation felt deliberately cruel, especially knowing her current circumstances, working double shifts as a night janitor while studying nursing during the day, barely making ends meet in their tiny apartment. "Mommy, why are you crying?" 8-year-old Emma appeared at her side, her pigtails slightly crooked from playing with her brothers. Sarah quickly wiped her eyes. "Just something in my eye, sweetheart." She glanced at the triplets, Emma, Ethan, and Oliver, playing with toys she'd bought from the thrift store. They deserved so much more than their cramped life, but her love for them was infinite, even if her bank account wasn't. The wedding was set for Saturday at the Grand Marriott downtown, the kind of place Sarah could never afford even for a cup of coffee. David had clearly moved on, marrying Victoria, a successful lawyer whose family owned half the city's commercial real estate. Sarah had seen the engagement photos on social media, David beaming in his designer suit, Victoria dripping in diamonds. For days, Sarah wrestled with the invitation. Part of her wanted to throw it away, to spare herself the humiliation David clearly intended. But another part, to the part that had loved him once, that had believed in their future together, felt compelled to go. Maybe she needed closure. Maybe she needed to show herself she'd survived. Friday evening, as Sarah was getting the children ready for bed, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. "Sarah Martinez." The voice was crisp, professional. "Yes, this is attorney Jennifer Walsh. I represent your late great-aunt Millicent Pattison. I'm afraid I have some urgent matters to discuss with you. Can we meet tomorrow morning?" Sarah's heart sank. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a mistake. I don't have any family by that name." "Mrs. Martinez, I assure you there's no mistake. Your great-aunt has left you a substantial inheritance. We really must meet as soon as possible." The world seemed to tilt. Sarah sat down heavily on her worn couch. I have something important tomorrow. Could we meet Sunday?" "I'm afraid the timing is quite specific. The will stipulates that you must be contacted and informed before tomorrow evening." "Would 10 a.m. work?" "I can come to you." Sarah agreed, her mind spinning. She'd never heard of this great-aunt, but she remembered her grandmother mentioning distant relatives who'd moved abroad years ago. Saturday morning arrived with unseasonably warm sunshine. Attorney Walsh was punctual, arriving at Sarah's apartment with a leather briefcase and a gentle smile that reminded Sarah of her late grandmother. "Your great-aunt Millicent moved to England in 1963, Attorney Walsh explained, settling into Sarah's second-hand chair. "She was quite successful in business and never married or had children. She'd been quietly keeping track of her American relatives through a private investigator." Sarah listened in stunned silence as Attorney Walsh explained that Millicent had followed Sarah's struggles and admired her dedication to her children and her education. The inheritance was substantial enough to pay off all debts, buy a house, and ensure the children's college educations. "There's one more thing," Attorney Walsh said, pulling out a sealed envelope. She left specific instructions for today. Inside was a handwritten letter in elegant script. "My dear Sarah, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've watched you from afar and seen your strength, your sacrifice, your unwavering love for your children. Today, I want you to hold your head high. You are worth more than diamonds, stronger than steel, and more precious than any treasure." The car service will arrive at 2 p.m. Wear the contents of the box with pride, dear. You've earned every thread. With love and admiration, Great-Aunt Millicent. Sarah looked around, confused. until she noticed a large white box by her door that hadn't been there earlier. Inside was the most beautiful dress she'd ever seen, emerald green silk that seemed to shimmer like water, with matching shoes and a delicate pearl necklace. At exactly 2 p.m., a white limousine pulled up outside Sarah's building. The children pressed their faces to the window in amazement as Sarah, transformed in her beautiful dress, walked toward the car with newfound confidence. "Mommy, you look like a princess," Oliver shouted. The limousine was equipped with car seats, and the children chatted excitedly during the drive to the Grand Marriott. Sarah felt like she was in a dream, but more than that, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: a pride in herself. The wedding ceremony was already underway when their limousine pulled up to the hotel's grand entrance. The doorman opened the car door, and Sarah stepped out first, followed by her 3 children, all dressed in their Sunday best. A murmur rippled through the crowd of wedding guests gathered in the lobby. David, greeting late arrivals, turned and his face went pale. Victoria, radiant in her designer gown, looked confused as whispers spread through the gathering. "Daddy," Emma called out, running toward David. Her brothers followed, their faces bright with joy at seeing their father. David knelt down awkwardly, his expensive suit creasing as the children hugged him. Over their heads, his eyes met Sarah's. Gone was the broken, struggling woman he'd expected to humiliate. In her place stood someone transformed not by money or clothes, but by the quiet dignity that had always been her greatest strength. "Sarah," he whispered, standing slowly. "You look—" "Hello, David," she said simply, her voice steady and warm. "Thank you for inviting us. The children have missed you." Victoria approached, her smile tight and calculating. "How lovely that you could make it, and in such style." Her eyes took in the limousine, the dress, the confident way Sarah carried herself. "Life has a way of surprising us," Sarah replied graciously. "Congratulations on your marriage. I hope you'll both be very happy." The genuine warmth in Sarah's voice seemed to deflate whatever cruel satisfaction David had planned to derive from her presence. Instead, he found himself remembering why he'd fallen in love with her in the first place: her kindness, her strength, her ability to find grace in any situation. During the reception, Sarah sat with the children at a corner table, helping them with their fancy dinner and laughing at their excitement over the elaborate decorations. She didn't try to mingle or draw attention to herself. She simply existed in the space with quiet dignity, watching her children experience something beautiful. David found himself gravitating toward their table throughout the evening, drawn by the sound of genuine laughter and the sight of his children's happiness. Victoria, busy with her society friends and photographers, barely noticed. As the evening wound down, Sarah gathered the children to leave. David approached her by the coat check. "Sarah, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I invited you here for the wrong reasons. I don't know what I thought." Sarah looked at him with eyes full of understanding rather than anger. "We all make mistakes, David. What matters is how we choose to move forward." "The children. They're incredible. You've done an amazing job raising them." "They're our children," she corrected gently. "They need their father in their lives." As Sarah walked toward the limousine with the triplets, David called after her. "Sarah, how did you— where did all this come from?" She turned back, smiling mysteriously. "Sometimes the universe has a way of taking care of those who take care of others." The limousine pulled away, carrying Sarah and her children into their new future. Through the rear window, David watched until the taillights disappeared, realizing too late what he'd lost to and understanding, perhaps for the first time, what Sarah had always been worth. In the back seat, Emma snuggled against her mother. "Mommy, was that really Daddy's wedding?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Are you sad?" Sarah considered the question, looking out at the city lights blurring past. "No, baby. I'm grateful. For what? For you, and your brothers, and for learning that sometimes the best gift life gives us isn't what we thought we wanted, but exactly what we needed. The children fell asleep during the ride home, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and her transformed future. Great Aunt Millicent had given her more than money, as she'd given her the reminder that her worth had never been determined by David's opinion or society's judgment. It had always been there, in her dedication to her children, her pursuit of education despite overwhelming odds, and her ability to meet cruelty with kindness. The limousine pulled up to their apartment building. But it no longer looked like a destination, it looked like a starting point. Tomorrow, Sarah would begin house hunting. Next month, she'd complete her nursing degree. And someday, when her children were older, she'd tell them about the great aunt they'd never met who believed in them enough to change their lives forever. But tonight, as she carried her sleeping children upstairs and tucked them into their beds, Sarah understood that the real transformation hadn't come from the inheritance or the dress or the limousine. It had come from finally seeing herself the way Great Aunt Millicent had seen her all along, as someone worthy of love, respect, and every good thing life had to offer.